So, hi everyone. Um, the topic for today. So, first of all, thank you to everyone who sent me their artworks. Shilpi, Manasvi, Preetam ji, thank you so much. I really loved what you did, and I really appreciate your efforts. And since last class was more about um, compositions, I was thinking that we can talk a little bit about compositions in today's class. Um, so for this exercise, you don't have to have a bigger sheet. Okay, just grab any A4 size sheet that you have, and you could use the full sheet, or you could um, fold it in half and make two pieces like this. And the idea is that you have smaller sheets like these and also an A4 sheet by your side. And I will teach you a little bit about how do we compose calligraphic artworks. And for the most part, it's to do with the traditional one that follows a symmetrical line, like the one that we did in the last class. This one. So these are more traditional ones, and then we also did a little bit of non-traditional one or modern calligraphy. So for this one, you can use any traditional or modern style, and uh, basically to quickly tell you how it works. So imagine if this is your frame. You always have to remember one thing, that your composition is all about the frame that you have. I'm making different shapes here. Now, so imagine these are your canvases, all right, and you have to compose or write in it in such a way that it all balances out. And by balance, I mean that there is a balance between negative and positive parts of the canvas. And by that, what I mean is where your writing is and the white part that you have left. Uh, so these two spaces are called negative and positive parts of the canvas. So the one that has nothing, just the white paper, is called negative space. So balancing between these two will give you a better idea of how to compose better. So for example, if you have a circular canvas like this, so how would you go about it? You could, like, conventionally go with the center approach. You write something in the center, and that sort of composes it. But then you also need to take care of the negative space that I talked about. So, for example, I will go with, let's say, let's write Devanagari. something like this, or you could compose it like this. If you have let's say this rectangular shape, you so every canvas is divided in these imaginary lines that we call the plane of the canvas. And there are, if you draw two lines on each side, you get these 4 points. All right. Um, you get these 4 points, and um, you can actually use these 4 points to locate your um, the center content or the word that you're writing. Just hold on a sec. Give me 1 minute.
क्या हुआ इनके चाय का? नहीं आया.
Hello. Yeah. So continuing on, so you are left with these 4 points, and you can actually place your center point here. And by that I mean, let's say we are writing Shri Ram. For that one, I will use, let's say, I will rotate this one and I will write it here. I'm just casually writing just to give you an idea. You see, the negative space and the border gives more space for your artwork to be highlighted. That's why we need the negative space, because it puts a spotlight on your artwork or what you're trying to write. This one, let's just do a middle bar, and you let's just do the graffiti version of Devanagari vowels. You see, these are like small details that you can put, like dots and lines, that really complements the artwork. So for this one, the imaginary line, let's put the artwork on one of these points. Okay, so I'm choosing this point here. Let's just write since it's a corner, so let's write Kona. You don't have to write a lot to create an appealing artwork. You just have to know what to write and where to write. So for this one, I like these 4 points. I am choosing this place for placing the artwork. It will still make some sense. Just make sure to leave the negative space. And I know one thing, a lot of calligraphers initially, and I was also into it, like I would try to write as much as possible, or create a larger calligraphic artwork. And if I write a poetry, so I would try to write the whole poem. But the whole idea is that you so what do you really want to show to the audience? that guides your composition. And if one mindlessly does composition or composes without any, um, let's say, a reason, uh, it always ends up looking confusing, the artwork. And if you have a clear vision of what you want to do and where you want uh, it to be exhibited, and what's the audience that going to consume it, so you can choose these indicators which will guide your compositions. um, these scroll kind of canvases, I really have a thing for these, because for Chinese, Japanese calligraphy, a lot of it is done on scrolls. And there's because it is written vertically, so it has its own beauty. Its aesthetics are different. They use brush over um, bamboos and angled pens or metal nibs. They don't use all of that. They just use brush. And uh, they also have this niche in Chinese calligraphy. They use the Chinese calligraphy brush to make birds, lotus, chrysanthemum flower, and a lot of natural natural beauty, like plants, animals. So if for this one, I am thinking that I will leave negative space around the corner. So there will be a border, and I will be going for vertical Hindi.
सर, ये आपका ड्रॉ करना कंप्लीट होने के बाद में इसको थोड़ा आप क्लोजअप दिखाएंगे?
हाँ, श्योर। मैं इसमें कोई मीनिंग नहीं लिख रहा हूँ, इट्स जस्ट जिब्रिश। मैं सिर्फ अल्फाबेट फॉर्म्स के साथ प्ले कर रहा हूँ। इसमें कोई सेंस नहीं है एक्सेप्ट फॉर द कॉम्पोजिशन। I'll make one more, since this was not successful. Yeah. Can you see?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Does this make sense? You see the negative space here, the white negative space here. This is what gives my artwork more space to be highlighted. If it's full of letters, then the audience often, or the person who's viewing your artwork, will always be confused from where to start looking at your painting. So if you want to, I mean, one good advice that I got initially was to focus on words, simpler concepts, alphabet forms to begin with, because you will have more control if you have less alphabets to work on. If you have more alphabets to work with, it automatically becomes more complex to handle, and then you don't know what to focus and what to hide. And it you can very well do experiment in like writing just the alphabets on the whole page, but again, the audience and who's going to consume it, that needs to be taken care of. So with that, let's just focus on. So what I do, I always am on a lookout for these kind of papers. Um, you will get these papers in a lot of packings, and I usually get these from sheet packets. And whenever I go to a printer shop, they also have a lot of these unnecessary card like pages, uh, but these are really good for calligraphy. So always look for pages, and thick pages with more GSM value, uh, because you need to experiment, because every page has a different relation with the ink that you're using. Camlin is more liquid based, and I'm using a mix of. Um, this is a Chinese ink. It's called Sumi. Uh, you can buy it on Amazon. It's for 300 rupees, 350 maybe. This is a really nice ink, and it changes texture as well. So if I keep this outside, let's say I pour it in the bowl and I leave it outside for half an hour, it becomes thicker. And you will see the impression it leaves on the paper is, it would actually look like it's printed. So this is a pretty good ink, and it's going to last you for months, because this is, I mean, this box is 250 grams. It should be in ml, but yeah, it's a pretty good big bottle. And it's called Chinese Sumi ink. You will see a lot of Sumi inks. There are some really expensive ones as well. So, but Amazon has a lot, so you can check it out there. So for today's class, I had selected a two-liner from an Urdu poetry that we can write. And let me just quickly introduce you. Just a sec. Sorry, it's flickering a little. So I will be writing a couplet by Gulzar. It's called Pal, and it's from a It's from his poetry called Pal. It's a ghazal. Um, so with this one, I'm gonna refer to my my phone here, and the poetry says, "कोई अटका हुआ है पल शायद, वक्त में पड़ गया है बल शायद." And the way I approach calligraphy, uh, excuse me, is this light really helping, or is it a distraction for you? Hello, is this fine for you, or should I? Because it's flickering a little.
हाँ, but it's okay, sir.
It's okay.
Not bothering.
Okay. So let's begin. Um, so roughly, I'm going to calculate how many words are there in the first line itself. कोई अटका हुआ है पल शायद. So there are 6 words that I have to write. So instead of writing like this, I'm gonna shift to this aspect. And if you're unsure in the beginning of if whether or not you are going to handle the nib, I recommend everyone to use a sketch pen instead of an angled pen, because you have more control on the sketch pen than the calligraphy pen. And make sure to write it in a way that your pen, I mean, your sketch pen should be aligned with the pen that you're writing. So it can't be like this. Sorry. So if I'm writing, let's say A, it can't be this small, because if I write with this nib, this will completely vanish. I mean, there is a little miscalculation. If I have to write according to the pen, I have to expand the stroke, write it as big as possible. Now, if I write, I will have a better fitting. Okay, so we are going to follow the same approach here. So let's go. So let's begin. Since I'm writing without scale, there will be overlappings. Now I will loosely make the Shirorekha. It doesn't have to be perfect. So it's a mix of both traditional and modern. And in the end, we will write Takhallus, or the name of the poet. Fun fact, Gulzar is actually um, comes from a Sikh family. He's a Sardar, but a lot of people know him with his pen name or Takallus. So, this is roughly an idea of how to go about a composition. This can be, I mean, you are able to see how much space just the two lines have taken, you know. And if you write it like copy, school copy books, like from here to here, from this end to this end, it looks boring according to me. It should have some negative space on both sides and here as well. And it doesn't need to be perfect in any sense. Even if you do just random calligraphy strokes, it will look good. Now let's take some smaller canvases to work on. Does anybody have a request of what to write or a suggestion. It would be great if you can suggest, if anybody of you could suggest me. No? Okay. Um, let's see, what do we have here? For this particular piece of paper, I will just use my thumb or my finger. And I will try to write. Let's go with Om. One of my favorite things to write. And if I put this inside a border, it will make more sense. You see, doesn't have to be complicated to look good. And you don't need calligraphy tools to do calligraphy. So it's a myth buster. Now, let's do something more complex. For this exercise, what I'm going to do is, let's say I will mark an area, or I could just begin. So I usually begin from either of the corners. Just start making any alphabet that comes to your mind. It could be any alphabet. You could just simply write kakaga. Yeah, that doesn't matter. But the idea is to connect alphabets. And this is an abstract design exercise. So I will start by making. So one thing I know is cha and ja. They have a similar stroke. Okay. If I continue on this one, I'm just connecting alphabets, whichever's coming to my mind first. You will see automatically, you will have this vision in front of the paper. That's how you connect these alphabets, or any alphabet. It could be any alphabet, any script, any language. What you have to do is find similar strokes, or how can you connect two alphabets together. So this is the whole idea. There could be one more. So gha matches with cha. And cha can be connected with dha. I'm just playing with the alphabet form, nothing else. It starts to look symmetrical. It might not have a meaning, but you can create meaning out of it, for sure. So this is all traditional calligraphy. Next, we only have roughly 20 minutes, close to 20 minutes now. So the people who shared their artworks with me, I really loved the effort, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how can you compose better. Although they were quite fascinating works, and some of you have really done a great job. So thank you so much, whoever sent me that. Um, so I'll connect this with the idea of how did manuscripts were designed back in the days. So imagine if this is the page of the Pandulipi that I'm going to write on. Let's say I'm writing Panchtantra or Ramcharitmanas, and I have limited sheets and I have a pen. So how do I make so many lines all at once? Okay, this is one thing could be I take a scale. Let's say if this is a scale, I mark all the lines down, and then one by one I complete the whole page with the lines, or the 6 or 5 nukta long lines. So to make it quickly, what they did, a lot of the calligraphers, so they would have a, a frame, a wooden frame. I mean, it's not hollow, it's just a piece of paper, but they would have a frame somewhat like this. So they would have a frame. This was a wooden frame. I don't have a photo, otherwise I would have shared. So this would be a frame with nails attached to it on both the ends, like this, and on the same place. Okay. And from here to here, they will tie threads. And these threads were further tied to an extended thread that connected all these threads. And this one had a thread attached to all the knots. So what they would do, they would sprinkle haldi powder on it, on the threads, and they will keep the pandulipi or the page below it, beneath it, and pick this string up and then pull it up and suddenly leave it. So all the strings, when they hit back the paper, it will leave the impression or the lines on the paper, and those lines are easy to erase. Because if you use pencils, um, so after doing calligraphy, when you're erasing your pencil marks, it can lead to your ink getting dispersed, and it could possibly destroy the artwork. So in order to prevent all that, they made these wooden frames and coat it with haldi or
Sir,
turmeric. Yeah.
uh,
Sorry.
haldi mark are quite strong. So how they used to erase it?
Uh, Sorry, what was the question again?
Haldi marks are quite strong. I mean, the stain is quite strong. Haldi
Yeah,
stain.
on
So,
human skin it is, for sure,
uh-huh,
but on
uh-huh,
page, on a piece of
uh-huh,
paper, it won't be
uh-huh,
that much. You could just pick it up and, you know, like you do this, so
uh-huh.
you could just flick it off from the paper because it's powder,
Okay,
and you can
okay,
also
yes,
brush it off of the sheet. If it's
okay.
not wet, it can easily be
Mm-hmm.
erased. But
Okay.
that's the ancient style. You could also go for chalk powder. You don't have to go for haldi powder. You use some powdered chalk and coat all the strings with it, and then use it. I mean, there was, sorry, are you asking a question?
Ani sir, you continue, then I'll ask. Huh.
No, please ask.
You're saying something about charcoal. Okay. Sir, in those days, they didn't have scales or anything to measure. But whatever they had written in manuscripts, old manuscripts of old Nagari or any manuscript, the lines are equidistant. So how they used to make this kind of frame? I mean, what was the mean of marking?
uh, so this would be used for writing on pandulipi. So imagine if this frame is used on this sheet, I will have such lines on the paper. All right. And then I could just simply start writing. So this is how they knew how many lines to add. And they did have a scale. I mean, they could have used a wooden plank or something like that. Because if you ever see Grantha Pandulipis from South India, the palm leaves, they are they're almost like they're smaller than my phone actually. Maybe half the size of my phone, this much, and they have wooden panels attached to the end and the starting of the Pandulipi, and they are attached all together. So there's a hole that is punched on all the pages and on the cover, and the cover is actually pure wood. It's not a paper. So they would tie it up, and they would use such frames to mark how much alphabet should be written on a particular piece of paper. And Pandulipi, like the ones with palm leaf, they were not inked like the other ones, or they did not use inks like these or pens like these. They never used any such thing. They would use a needle, and if this is a palm leaf, So they would open the needle and engrave it. All the content, they would engrave it. And when they're done with one page, let's say, so they would use a mix of ink and water and apply it on a piece of cloth, and then rub all the palm leaf with that ink. And when that's done, they simply wipe the excess ink, and those ridges soak up the ink so that you can read what has been engraved. So you understand, like, this process. I think there is a video on this as well on YouTube. There's also a course on writing palm leaf manuscripts. They also followed a similar pattern. So how would you measure, let's say, these? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nuktas. It should be 6 nuktas each. Okay. So imagine if you have 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. 6 into 6, 36. 36 nuktas and 6 lines. So you can write close to one paragraph on this much piece of paper. Is it clear to everyone? Okay. Now it's just 7 minutes to the class. So I hope the concept is clear to everyone. Does anybody have a question? I would love to answer if you have.
So,
Yeah.
while writing manuscripts in those days, if some word, if they write it wrongly, so
Yeah.
what was how they used to make it correct or erase it like that?
They would actually write it with charcoal first, or a pencil, like
Mm-hmm.
lead. They would use such
Mm-hmm.
things to minimize their errors. So if you write, so don't directly start writing your artwork or making your artwork. You should think about what you are going to write, and what is that alphabet that's going to cover most part of your page. And if you are planning to write more than one line, how are you planning to distribute it throughout the paper? It could be just one alphabet on the paper, but the whole idea is to calculate how big is the paper and how much are you going to write, and what pen do you have. That's the most important thing. So for writing smaller pandulipi, like this one, the one that we discussed here, you would need 2 mm column. 2 mm column is pretty thin. It's almost as thin as this uh, sketch pen. And so you can have an idea. Like, this is 14 mm, and one part of it is actually 4 mm. Like, one line is 4 mm. So half of this one would be 2 mm. That's what you're going to use on this Pandulipi. But to control that 2 mm column, it is pretty difficult. You need to use something called davat. If you know what davat is, does anybody know what davat is? No? No idea? Anybody?
No idea, sir. It's a
Okay.
kind of ink.
It's not ink. It's ink pot.
Yeah, ink pot actually. Huh?
Yeah. So uh, the problem with kalam or dip pen is, so for example, if I dip and I just put it on the paper without draining it. This is giving me, it's wetter than I thought, or I don't want it to be so soaked. So what I do, I clean up the column first, and then I straight away. So this is more soaked. I'll show you this one. Yeah. I don't know if you're able to see, but the page is completely soaked, right? Although the glaze looks beautiful, but what if I had so Davat, what the Davat does, it prevents the pen from getting or leaving such impressions. And how do you make Davat? You take cotton cloth, and then inside that cotton cloth, you stuff some cotton, raw cotton, and then you make it like a small pillow, and then use a small container which can be used to stuff it stuff it stuff the container with that pillow and pour ink on it. And remember, the cotton should be wet. You just drench it in some water and then add your ink. But before you put it in the container, um, just soak it. After you soak it, you have to squeeze out the excess liquid. I'm actually looking for a dawat that I made so that I can show you. Just give me a moment. Yeah, here it is. So this is a dawat, if you can see. It's actually full of ink. And if you use dawat, it will prevent the overflow from happening. So I have made this dawat with cotton cloth and raw cotton. And at the moment it's excess ink. So I'm gonna, yeah, I'll show you with a smaller pen. So if I just straight away use my ink bowl, and I'm using a smaller column here, you see the overflow? I'll show you from close up. The edges are not sharp. I'm just dipping it in the bowl, but my column is not able to hold the ink that much. So to prevent this, I use Dawat, and the amount of ink that should be there in your Dawat should be like, it should look dry, okay? But if you press it down, you should be able to see the liquid. Does that make sense? Like this. So I'll use, this is a stopper for your column. See, the ink is now controlled. If you use the ink directly from the source or a bigger container like this, it will leave impressions that are more wild, uncontrolled. So you see, the third stroke was slightly better, but the first stroke would never be okay. See, fourth stroke. Is it clear to everyone?
Yes, sir.
And if so, this is more controlled one. I've used Davat in it. I am now going to show you one with direct dip. Just see the difference. Can you see? There is so much ink on this one, and there is just enough ink to show the alphabet. I hope that makes sense to all of you. So
Yes, sir.
with this, we can wrap up the class. And let me know if you have any questions. You can use a container like this, a small container like this. It should be pretty good for a Davat.
Sir, I thought this one is appropriate for this.
Sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
So I thought Resham was more accurate for this.
Resham is also appropriate for this one, but this is a cheaper alternative to Resham. Resham can be reused. The benefits of using Resham is that you can squeeze out the ink. For example, if I have been using Resham in my ink pot or ink well, and I want to change the color from black to red, so I'm going from dark to a lighter shade, or a lighter color. So there is a possibility in Resham that I can put silk threads in warm water, leave it for some time, and it squeezes out all the excess ink in it. And you can then continue using a different ink on it. It will absorb a new ink without mixing it up. But to source it in India is a little tricky. It's only available in Delhi, Bombay, and some parts of Rajasthan. You can very well use Resham if you can get it. It's called Ahir. No, Ahir is the paper, and Likka is uh, the, the silk threads. So it's called Likka, 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 and it's available on a lot of Islamic calligraphy websites. So you can buy, but the cheaper alternative, you can make it at home. Everyone on this call would have cotton cloth and cotton at their home, so you can actually make it right now if you have a small container like this. Otherwise, if you can also go for Resham. That's not a problem. It'll be better. So can we wrap up and I give you a small homework? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So your homework would be to write 10 words. It could be any words. And make sure to not use just one paper. If you can have negative spaces, beautify it as much as you can. but make it simple. Choose smaller words, and you can also do something like so if you're, for example, if you're writing pal, okay, so you could write one alphabet that is covering most part of the sheet, and you can choose a smaller column to complete your artwork. Just um, just see what can you make, how can you compose, how can you adjust, balance your composition. So I hope this helps, and let me know. I'm available on WhatsApp if you have any questions. Otherwise, we can wrap up.
Anyone is having any question? You may please ask. Seems all queries are being answered. Thanks, sir. So we will wrap. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for the wonderful session, sir. Thank you. See you tomorrow at same time. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.